Summer Game Fest has officially ended, and it looks like 2023 is gonna be one of those really good years for gaming, just like 2007. Almost every game shown at the Summer Fest I'm pretty much excited for. Of course, there's a bunch of CGI trailers that I could give 3 about, but a lot of games that they've shown gameplay for, I am truly excited for. That's why I wanted to make this list, the 10 games I'm most excited to see from the Summer Game Fest. And because this channel still has ties to the God of War series, I decided to reserve the last 2 entries on my list for games that are, replacements for my God of War itch, if you will. One game will be for those fans that like the God of War Norse saga more than the Greek one, and of course, one other game is gonna be more for the Greek fans. So, yeah, let's get on with the list. Kicking off the list is Mortal Kombat 1, a soft reboot of what many consider the most violent video game series of all time. This violence is more present than ever with Mortal Kombat 1's new dynamic combat system called Cameo Fighters. This new mechanic to the series sounds very similar to MK9's tag team mode, but based on what I've seen, Cameo Fighter seems to be a much more complex system, as it will allow players to call in these Cameo Fighters for special attacks, unique X-rays, and even fatalities. Fatalities that unfortunately the Elder Gods won't let me show on YouTube. The story also has me really intrigued, as this time around Liu Kang is taking the center stage as a supreme fire god who created a whole new reality, meaning the backstory of some characters you know will be drastically different from what you're used to. I've always been a big fan of the series, so this is pretty much a day one purchase for me. Now, I get it, this level of violence Mortal Kombat is known for is not for everybody. I'm sure some of you just want to play something more whimsy, more Christmassy if you will. But developers can't possibly gamify something like Christmas, right? Well... That's right, there is currently a video game take on the classic Christmas Carol story. In this game, you will of course play as Ebenezer Scrooge, who instead of being a frail and cheap old man, is a Doctor Strange type of character who's able to summon spirits to help him fight the evil monsters of Christmas, I guess? Look, I'll be honest with you guys, I don't really care too much about this story. This game is mostly on my list because I'm really curious to see if the developers are able to pull off such an odd yet interesting setting for a game. So if you're as interested as I am on this concept of a Metroidvania Christmas Carol game, you don't have to wait for more news. You can head over to Steam and download the demo right now. Now, you guys know I'm not the biggest fan of live service games, especially those that keep trying to capture the essence of the money-making cow that is Destiny. Every time I hear developers talk about a multiplayer co-op experience, my first thought is to immediately turn the video off. This was also the case with a lot of games shown at the Summer Game Fest, except one. 33 Immortals by Thunder Lotus Games. And as the game implies, you will indeed be able to play with up to 33 players in the world of Dante's Inferno, which is a really interesting setting for a video game if you ask me. But look, it doesn't matter as much. The developers of this game are the same people who made Jotun a couple of years back, and that game has to be one of the most underrated Norse mythology games of all time. And with 33 Immortals, it seems like the developers aren't planning on changing their beautiful hand-drawn style as well as their approach to innovative gameplay mechanics. Mechanics such as the torture chamber challenges, which increase your chance to unleash the wrath of God, which puts you in harm's way but also allows you to ascend to the higher circles of hell. Maybe it's the source material for the story, or maybe it's the gameplay mechanics, but this game has definitely piqued my interest. Now on the number 7 spot, we have Bloodborne 2. Although we only got to see some concept art of the game, I think I can say on behalf of everybody that we are beyond excited. Oh wait, did I say Bloodborne 2? I meant to say Lies of P. This isn't by any means a new game shown at the Summer Game Fest. We've known about Lies of P for quite some time now. But what was special about its appearance in the showcase was the announcement of a demo. And when the developers gave us a free demo, my incoming great game alarm immediately goes off. And after playing some of it, I can confirm that it truly lives up to the hype. The setting itself was enough for me to be on board. I don't know about you guys, but I always found Disney's Pinocchio kinda creepy. And with this game, that feeling has been cranked up to 10. The gameplay also seems to be improving the Souls formula in some very interesting ways, which in my opinion was beginning to get a little stale. It might not be Bloodborne 2, but I'm sure it's going to scratch that itch and then some. And look, if you're skeptical, you can go and play the demo right now, it's free after all. Now while the whole world was waiting for Bloodborne 2, or even a remake of the first game, I was hoping to see the next entry in one of my personal favorite series of all time, BioShock. But much like Bloodborne fans, we got nothing. But we did get to see a glimpse of a game called Clockwork, which seems like it's going to scratch that BioShock itch I've had for so many years now. From what I understood in the trailer, this game will lean more into the time travel mechanics. There's one moment in the trailer where the main character seems to have changed something in the past, resulting in the present itself changing. If the developers are successful in conveying these time travel elements into the mechanics of the game, Clockwork could be revolutionary for the FPS genre. And look, it's time developers start rolling out current-gen games that are able to use these consoles' true capabilities. Enough of these cross-gen games, it's time for gaming to be reinvented with new and exciting new mechanics. And hopefully Clockwork will be one of those games. If not, at least I'll get my Bioshock fix. On the number 5 spot, I have a game that I've been somewhat interested in ever since it got announced a couple of years back. Witchfire. In Witchfire, you play as, well, a witch hunter, armed with the spells of fearsome firearms conjured by the best Vatican sorceress in order to defeat the Witch of the Black Sea. So yeah, it's a story that it's an excuse to just kill witches, which is pretty good with me. The world and enemies remind me a lot of the dark fantasy setting of games like Dark Souls. This, combined with a Doom-inspired combat system, makes for a great video game concept. However, there is one thing about this game that has me slightly worried. It's going to be a roguelite. And as you guys know, that's not one of my favorite genres in gaming. Now, the developers themselves have said that this game is being designed with people like me in mind. I'm not sure what they mean by that, but on the website of the game it says that there will be multiple roads to victory, which will probably help with the repetitive feeling other roguelikes have given me. But overall, I have faith. The team making this game are the same people who made Bulletstorm, one of the most underrated FPS games of all time. Plus, the setting is just ripe for an action-filled game. Despite my worries, I am still very excited to try this game when it goes out in early access this September. So for the most part, you guys know that I don't tend to get hyped up about multiplayer games. They just aren't my thing. But when I saw Warhaven's, those feelings changed immediately. And I think this is because Warhaven isn't trying to compete with other big multiplayer games releasing this year. It's trying to be its own thing by tackling the fantasy genre in an interesting multiplayer setting that will pit 16 players against other 16 players in brutal but satisfying combat. The game reminds me a lot of God of War Ascension's multiplayer mode, which I've always thought was underrated by the gaming community. Warhaven seems to be carrying the torch God of War Ascension held so many years ago. However, much like Witchfire, there's something that worries me about this game, and it's the scary term known as free-to-play. I'm not going to get into it, but I just hope the developers don't go too crazy with microtransactions. I get it, you guys need to get paid, but this game has a lot of potential and I don't want to see it squander with emotes and battle passes. Now, up to this point, I've talked about games that I'm potentially looking into buying in the coming years, but I'm still going to be what you call a discerning consumer and wait for reviews. However, my number 3 pick is a game that has already sold me on its concept, a fresh revival to the old school genre of shoot-em-ups. The game I'm talking about, of course, is Iron Meat. Now, I should say that the main reason I'm sold on this game is because I've played the demo, and I have absolutely fallen in love with this blast from the past. Now, some of you watching this video might consider yourselves sophisticated gamers. So when you look at 2D shoot 'em up, your first instinct might be to make fun of it for its simplistic design. It's true that you're just shooting easy to kill enemies, but the fun of the game happens when you find yourself having to fight multiple enemies while also dodging a swarm of bullets coming your way. At first you'll want to give up, but if you're a true gamer, you're gonna stay there. You're gonna die, and die again, until you eventually earn that victory. There's no relying on stats or special armors to help you. You need to get good at this game, otherwise you will not beat it. I've only played 3 levels of this game and I've already fallen in love with it. So please, I implore you, go to Steam and download this demo right now. Oh, and there's also local co-op, which is pretty rare these days. As promised, the last 2 games on my list are games I believe will speak to the God of War fanbase. However, I think it's safe to say that there are 2 types of God of War fans. Those who like the Greek games and those who like the Norse saga. And when it comes to giving Norse God of War fans a suggestion for a game they might want to keep an eye out, it doesn't get any better than Banishers: Ghost of New Eden. At face value, it might seem like this game and God of War 2018 don't have much in common. But if you understand God of War 2018, not just a video game, but also a rich narrative experience that lets you peer into the complicated relationship between a father and son, then it's possible Banishers: Ghost of New Eden is the game for you. Out of all the games I saw at the showcase, not a single one intrigued me with its story as much as this game did. According to the game's description, the female character you see in the trailer is named Antia. Both her and her lover Red Mac are Banishers, or what the layman calls ghost hunters. The story of the game begins after Antia is mortally injured while hunting one of the previously mentioned ghosts. Her injury leads to her death, which in turn turns her into a ghost, the being she swore to banish from the realm of the living. From here, the goal of the game becomes to free Antea from her ghostly form, all the while making decisions for the inhabitants of New Eden as well as its ghosts. This mechanic of changing the fate of the world by making morally ambiguous decisions is the only aspect that's really different from the God of War formula. But other than that, it seems like the developers of this game are aiming to tell a very personal story. The game's combat also seems to be up close and personal, just like God of War's. And on top of that, the game's combat will also allow you to change between Red and Antea. Red has all the guns, and Antea is more of your mage type of character. And according to the developer, combining both of their playstyles will be the only way to survive this world. So in conclusion, if you're a fan of God of War 2018, you might want to keep an eye out on this game. I can't guarantee that it will be another storytelling masterpiece, but at least it has potential. Now, let's get to my number 1 pick. Have you ever wondered what a game like God of War 3 would play like in a 2D environment? Ever since Ru Ueshura alluded that the original Chains of Olympus was going to be a 2D game, I haven't been able to get this idea out of my mind. What would a 2D God of War game look like? Well, now I don't have to worry about this anymore. Let me introduce you Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. Now I should say that the Prince of Persia series, along with God of War and the Devil May Cry series, were in competition for the crown of best action-adventure game in the PlayStation 2 console. Prince of Persia of course focused more on its platforming mechanics, something that has returned in full force with The Lost Crown. But what I found quite impressive in the showcase of this game is just how smooth the combat looks for a 2D game. The most innovative mechanic of course is the time manipulation, where Sargon can easily turn back time to a moment where his position in the fight is more advantageous. But the game also looks incredibly responsive with its blades and bow and arrow attacks. The story also seems to be structured like an old school action-adventure game. The Prince of Persia has been taken to Mount Kaf, a city full of fantastical settings inspired by Persian mythology. You play as Sargon, one of the powerful immortals tasked with saving the prince. But upon your arrival, you will be met with all kinds of mythological monsters determined to get in your way. And this, my friends, this is what sold me on the game. The time travel mechanics look really interesting too. But I miss games where the stories are lighter and instead focus on putting the player in a fun environment full of secrets to discover. The only thing that worries me about this game is that it's going to be a Metroidvania. I have nothing against the genre. Symphony of the Night and Hollow Knight are 2 of my favorite games of all time. But I know for a fact that I tend to get really lost in these types of games. I don't like playing my games with a YouTube tutorial constantly telling me where I have to go. But other than that, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown seems like the old school God of War candidate I've been looking for. Let me know if you guys agree. So there you have it guys, the 10 games I saw at the Summer Game Fest that have me truly excited. Even though the Summer Game Fest wasn't anything like the E3 conferences of years back, it was still a very fun experience for me. I got to see a lot of games, and yeah, even though these are 10 games I'm really excited for, there's still a ton of games I want to play as well. Hell, I even want to try out Starfield, if it turns out to be good. But now that I've given you my list, I want to know what your list is. What are the 10 games you liked the most from the Summer Game Fest? Whatever your thoughts are, make sure to leave them in the comments section below. And that's gonna be it for today guys, thank you so much for watching, and until then remember... old habits.